All right, welcome back. We are going to get right into the exercises for Chapter 18, where we're going to use the historical data from the crop progress and condition reports to try to forecast yield in a way that we can update week by week during the growing season for any commodity that we care about. So let's just run through the basics of what we're going to do, and then we'll open up the Excel file. You should be able to link right here. It's also in the assignment that you would find on the Compass, our learning management system. But what we're going to do is we are going to learn one way that we can deal with the fact that yields are trending over time for our forecast. There's a couple different ways to deal with it. We hinted at it in the previous video, and the way that we're going to deal with that is to produce percent deviations from the trend yield, and that's the thing that we're going to try to forecast. That will remove any adverse effect that the fact that that data is trending over time would produce. The next thing that we're going to do, this will be the first time we try to forecast a variable that's not a price, and actually I think forecasting prices is the absolute hardest thing in the world to forecast, because prices, and especially price returns, are so volatile and they jump up and down around zero. That's a really hard thing to do. Whereas forecasting yield, you have a decent chance of producing a forecast. From a market analyst or a trading perspective, it will be hard for us to produce yield forecasts that are good before others who are trying to do the same thing can do it, and that's why it's so hard to make the next step, forecasting prices. If you could forecast yields better or sooner than others, then you could forecast prices better or sooner than others. But there's a whole lot of smart people in this world trying to do the same problem as fast as they can. And that's why something like forecasting yield, that maybe is not easy, but is a tangible problem, is difficult to translate into being successful in forecasting prices. But I digress. So the next thing that we're going to do is kind of the next thing that we'll learn is kind of a technical part of regression that you end up finding out one way or the other, sometimes when you just try it and it doesn't work, that we're going to have to hold out one of those condition categories in the regression. So the number of categories we had was very poor, poor, fair, good, excellent, and we aren't going to be able to include all of those categories on the right-hand side of our regression. I'll talk about why. And so as we get into it, we'll see that the first thing that we're going to do is fit a trend line for yields. That's something that we did back in a previous chapter, so we'll go through that quickly. Then we'll calculate each year's percent deviation from trend. I don't know if we've done that before. Then we'll recreate the plot figure number 2 from this chapter, where we plot we'll plot yield per harvested acre against that good plus excellent category. That was not a plot that we saw in the chart, but we'll do it anyway. And we'll talk about problems that arise if we try to forecast with that yield that's trending over time. Then in step 5, we will recreate figure 2 from this chapter, where we plot the percent deviation from trend yield against the good plus excellent categories. We'll think through number 6. And then finally what we'll do is we'll fit a regression model where we basically fit a line through those dots in figure 2 and try to use that to forecast yields as we move through the growing season. Okay, so the next thing I want you to do is get your Excel file ready, and I'm just going to go ahead and open this thing up. And when you open it up, it opens up to sheet 2, but go ahead and click over to sheet number 1, and let's take a look at what we've got here. When you go to, I pulled this data from USDA NASS, and when you go there, you find that you can get historical crop condition reports all the way back to 1986, and what I've done here is organize them this way, and then I've also plotted what the yield per harvested acre was for each of those years, and then we're going to fill in some of these categories. Okay, so the first thing that we were supposed to do is fit a trend through this yield. So let's just plot it first, and then we'll just use the chart feature to plot our regression equation. So I'm going to highlight this column, and I'm going to hold down on my control key, and then I'm going to hold down on control and the shift key, and then arrow all the way down. So I've got this column that I want to put on the x-axis, and then I want to put yields per harvested acre on the y-axis. So I'll do that by coming over here to Insert, Chart. I'll choose the dots. And we have seen this chart before, so it should be familiar to you. Maybe I want to see the lines. Change chart type, line. Yeah, let's go with that. It doesn't matter. We could do it the dots or the lines, but I had a preference for the line all of a sudden. In case you missed that, the way that you change from dots to line is while you're up here in Chart Tools, click the Design menu, then you click this Change Chart Type, and you can have it change what's going on in the data. Okay, so you can see that yields are trending over time. You can see here 1988, the big drought. 1993, another big drought, and here was 2012. Okay, I'm going to stop this video and continue on in the next.